Dear friends, valued allies, generous supporters, and esteemed guests, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. It is you who provide both the means and the motive that fuel the work we do. My name is Nicholas Cicconelli, and I am Vice President for Administration of the GLAA. And it is my privilege and my pleasure to introduce our first recipient of the Distinguished Service Award tonight, Councilmember Mary Che. Please step forward. Since her election in 2006, Councilmember Che has served as Ward 3's representative on the Council of the District of Columbia. In that time, she has chaired numerous committees and authored and introduced hundreds of bills and resolutions. Her work on the Council has been as broad as it has been progressive, spanning initiatives defending voting rights, combating homelessness, domestic violence, and sexual assault, promoting clean energy, environmental protections, and animal welfare, improving public transportation, schools, and health services, and of course, advancing equality. I couldn't possibly memorize all of her accomplishments, and if I were to read a list, I think we'd be here until our 48th anniversary.
We can do that.
So instead, I'd just like to mention two pieces of legislation in particular, for which we are sincerely grateful. The first is the Conversion Therapy for Minors Prohibition Amendment Act of 2013. And the Death with Dignity Act of 2015. Councilmember Che not only championed the adoption but the implementation of these acts by the Council and opposed attempts to obstruct and repeal them through congressional interference. Even before assuming public office, Mary Che was a consistent and outspoken ally of the LGBTQ community, was a longtime resident of the district, and a decorated member of the faculty of the George Washington University School of Law. She has worked tirelessly for decades alongside local advocates for equality and proven herself to be a thorough and thoughtful leader in addressing the complex and intersectional issues that affect our diverse population. In particular, she has paid special attention to the most vulnerable among us, such as youths experiencing homelessness. As a proponent of good governance, social justice, and equality before the law, we, your constituent neighbors and partners in progress, thank you for your distinguished service. Please accept this award as the person of our council.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everybody, and thank you all very much. You know, I do want to say a few things because I find this extraordinarily meaningful to me, especially since I do and have for over 30 years taught constitutional law and equal protection and the values that lie behind that. And I have to tell you, GLAA for almost 50 years has been fighting the good fight with great success. I must say, we're never home free. I think Councilmember Evans made that point. But the values, the sort of fundamental values that are at stake here are, one, people should be able to identify as they want to identify. People should be able to love whomever it is they want to love. People should be able to live their lives, as Justice Kennedy said in the major equal rights cases involving gay rights. They should be able to live with equal dignity and respect. And you can't go very far without seeing the impression that GLAA has made in the District of Columbia, in fact in the whole area, in impressing people with those ideals. Now, we know that people aren't born haters, they're not born discriminators. They learn that, they pick it up in the culture, they pick it up, you know, in other ways. And we can fight against that. And we need to fight against that. I'm going to give you just one little story about how even a very minor exchange can change people's attitudes. There's a woman who works over at GW. She's administrative staff. She's in her 50s. She's a churchgoer. She's African American. She's aware. She's sensitive to rights. And she came up to me one day and says, you know, Mary, I like most of what you do, but that vote on marriage equality, I'm sorry, I just can't agree with that. And I said, we had a talk for a while, and then, you know, we parted. And then about 2 weeks later, she came to me and she said, I've changed my mind. I said, you changed your mind? It wasn't our talk. Apparently, she was talking to her grown-up daughter. And her daughter said to her, what difference does it make to you who loves whom? What difference does that make to you, Mom? She had no answer. And she had to think about that. And it was just some idea that she inherited but didn't bear up when she was asked why. Why does it make a difference to her? We can engage with people, we can speak to people, and here's what I think is really important. We must continue to speak up. We have to respond when people engage in hateful activity or violence or anything of that nature. We cannot be quiet, because when you're quiet, you're complicit. And I tell you now, GLAA has had great victories, but we can't rest. We can't rest because there are some rather evil forces, like over on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, just saying. And once they unleash these furies of hatred, they travel around. So we have to be responsive. We have to answer. We have to be there. And I just thank you, GLAA, for giving me this honor, but really, for everything that you do and will do. So thank you so much.